Okay, hi guys, welcome back to the show. If you're here today and you haven't been here before, my name is Nicole Palmer, a mom, a multi-passionate entrepreneur, strategist, and owner of Nicole Williams Collective, a boutique consultancy and online platform where we specialize in helping you show up confidently while curating tips on work, business, life, and basically how to chase your dreams. Today, we are going to talk a bit about stepping outside of the mold and taking a chance on your passion. And I have a very special guest here with me today. We're going to basically talk to her about that. But before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Bet on Yourself, Life Lessons to Create and Cultivate Your Own Success, a book I wrote and just re-released to help women realize that it's not a gamble to bet on yourself. And you can, of course, get a copy on Amazon, BarnesandNobles.com, Google Play, iBooks, and I will be sure to leave the link in the description box. But now back to the show and to our very, very special guest. I have known this lady for probably about, it's funny when I was thinking about it, I've known this lady for about 20 years. And I may be aging myself now because I was thinking back, I was like, how long? And I've actually gauged how long I've known her based on my daughter, my older daughter, who is about to turn 25. So I've pretty much known her for about 20 years. My older daughter was about maybe 4 or so. And besides that, she's also the godmother to my youngest. I don't know about anyone else, but you don't take that lightly, just issuing godmother ship all over the place. This awesome queen is a mom herself. She's an ER doctor, a car fanatic, and of course, a fit and fashionable boutique owner. Shari Andrews, welcome to the show.
Thank you. What an introduction. But yeah, it's crazy how long we've known each other.
Yes, I was thinking, man, I was telling my friend, I was like, I've known her so long. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
20 years is a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Shari, I talked a bit about you, but I didn't quite get into who you are and what you do per se. So I'm going to let you do the honor of telling the audience a bit about yourself and what do you do?
Well, I mean, you said it right. I am car loving. Why? Because back in the day, it's just something that I've always had an affinity to when it comes to my brothers, just friends and communities that I've been a part of. We used to modify cars, race cars, and do things like that. I'm a Caribbean music junkie. My family's from Grenada, so I love soca music. I love reggae music. I just love the Caribbean background in general and culture. Fashion forward, that's actually one of the pillars of which we met, doing modeling and photo shoots and fashion shows and things like that. And in my more recent years, owning this boutique, Statement Piece New York, which was launched about 2 years ago, where I'm now designing for. What else? Fit, yes, I love weightlifting. I spend a lot of time in the gym. I spend a lot of time working on myself in many ways, and that is just one. And yes, I'm a doctor of medicine. I work in acute care as an emergency medicine doctor. I graduated 12 years ago, and I'm loving it. It's never a dull moment. And yes, I'm a mom. I have one son. He is now 12 years old. I'm a daughter. I'm an only sister, meaning my 2 brothers. There's so much to say, and it's so difficult when someone says to introduce yourself because we're so multi-layered.
Right.
But yeah, in a nutshell, that is me.
Right. Awesome. And to dive right in, and you talked about, the whole aspect of being multi-layered, and I believe strongly, I think the older I get, I believe even more strongly about bringing your whole self to the table and being able to do that, in my business and be able to get paid for it in different ways. But we live in a society that basically goes above and beyond to make it impossible for women to kind of juggle the demands of being caregivers and being breadwinners while also trying to nurture our passions and of course our own well-being. But I gotta say, you are out there living living your best life, girl. And so I wanted to ask, when did you decide that you were not going to adhere to the rules, especially what we are taught is meant to be feminine in this whole society?
Yeah, I think it just stems from the idea of being yourself, and not trying to just fit in, because out of everything that I've mentioned, as you put it, all of those aspects that I've discussed about my life, I am living every day, and I'm not doing it for anyone but myself. So if that's what brings me fulfillment, that's what I'm coming to the table with. When it comes to fitness and fashion and the cars, like you could look at my life right now, a snapshot of it, and I'm bringing it all to the table. Within business, even, I'm doing that. So just showing up authentically, that's just something that I can't say that I've always done, because I think we've all gone through a point of our lives, and maybe some of us
Yeah.
are still going through it, where we're just trying to be like that imposter syndrome, just do something that you're seeing everyone else do. But
Right.
I think the true growth comes in when you realize how to just be yourself.
Right. Right. It's freeing. And women in many arenas are held differently. Of course, that different standards from men in many ways. If men does something, and I'm not saying we're going to try to do everything they do, but I feel like we're held to a different standard to men in some workplaces too, when men will get away with doing stuff, and it's not about getting away, but when woman does it, it's looked upon differently. Can you share maybe a time when others maybe try to keep you to the status quo? Maybe in medicine.
I could think of a few things, but I wouldn't say that anyone's been bold enough to sort of put that on me and
Right.
pressure me in a way that I feel like I can't authentically be a woman and be myself. But I can name a few things where there might be that feeling of intimidation. And I can give the gym as an example. You go to the gym if you want to weight lift. A lot of women don't, because they feel uncomfortable or insecure for going into the side of the gym where all of the macho guys are and lifting weights
Right.
and things. But I think, again, it comes from a special place of power and self empowerment to
Right.
say, everybody starts somewhere, and I can't be afraid to do the thing that I want to do because society makes it
Right.
feel uncomfortable. And I think in this day and age, it's one of those things where, again, they're not saying, no, you can't come in this side of the gym.
Right.
They're going to be welcoming. They're going to help you if you need help. You just have to have the mindset to know that you can be free to do that. It's just like the
Right.
car world, and,
Right.
and as a car enthusiast and someone who was into cars, I was in car crews. I was probably one of two women out of a gang of 20 guys. Like it's one of those situations where you just have to tell yourself, forget what you think the societal norm is. Do what you enjoy. So I can't say that, it's not that they're not inviting. Men, I think, are inviting, but you just have to be authentic. And it all boils down to that.
Right. You got to be willing to step outside of the norm and not care what others have to say. Please, not eliminate yourself before you even tried. Don't think because somebody else hasn't done it before that you can't do
That
it.
you can't. Exactly.
Okay. And going back to being a physician, given the demands of you being a physician, because of course I know the demands. I remember also when you were, back in the day studying. I mean, girl, you were hitting those books.
Yeah.
And I mean, but I take my hat off to you because you did your thing. And considering the demands of your profession as a physician, how are you able to maintain a healthy work-life balance?
Yeah, no, that was not easy at all, because if I'm being transparent, there was a time in my life where I fell into a routine, and it wasn't a routine where there was balance. Um, just to give a little bit of background, my son is 12, and I've told you I've been a physician now. I graduated med school 12 years ago. So literally, I had Colin, and 2 weeks later, I walked across the stage for graduation. So that poses a few things. That poses a few problems, I would say, or a few challenges. Let's not call it problems. Challenge number one, I have a newborn baby, and in 1 month, I'm going to be starting life as a doctor, as a resident doctor. Life as a resident doctor means I'm working 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts. How am I going to do that effectively with a newborn? So that was difficult, right? So now I have 4 years of residency to do that. So Colin basically grew up with me as a resident, and so to speak. My class knew him as, you know, the baby of the class, right? But the challenge came in with where I realized that that was all I was doing. I was going home, caring for him, leaving, going to work, doing the work thing, studying, falling asleep while doing it. You know, it was just back and forth, and that was the routine. It was motherhood at home, doctoring at work, and trying to like keep up with my learning and my studies while there. And that was it, back and forth. So forget the cars, that fell to the wayside. Forget fashion, completely fell to the wayside. Forget like the things that, you know, bring that enjoyment, went to the wayside. It wasn't until, I don't know where the turning point came in. I think honestly, it probably came in where you and I went to a business conference, and the speaker was saying something about, you know, let's think about who you are as a person. You know, I'm not talking about your profession. I'm talking about you as a person. And I think it was in that moment, I'm writing my notes and I'm like, wait a second. Who am I?
Right.
Oh my God, like, what do I enjoy? I know what I used to enjoy. I know what I used to engulf myself in, but like, what happened to that, you know? And I know, like, then you realize, okay, I sacrificed a lot of time here.
Right.
And I need it back. I need it back, and you can't get it back. So going forward is when I decided to really like start planning my life, right? So that's where I started to actually use a calendar, and I used to actually plan what I'm going to do and when. If I have a day off, what can I do for myself that I would enjoy? And that's when I started getting back into those things slowly but surely. And over time, you know, here we are.
I feel you about that calendar, because my whole life is on my calendar. Like, if you ask me about something, I'll say, give me a second, let me check my calendar, or I'll check my calendar and get back to you. I don't do anything. I don't set a doctor's appointment. You know, even when it comes to my daughter, even though she's at school right now, her being at school is on my calendar. I just have it as a free time. But I kind of make sure that, you know, I'm able to see everything that's happening, so that way I can effectively be able to figure out what time I have and how am I going to invest that time to better myself.
And you make a good point. How are you going to invest that time? Because then you have to realize that there are some things people might ask you to do, favors, and you're probably going to be okay. But now if you value your time, if it's not serving you and you don't really want to say no as well, right? So
you don't do things out of you know, out of guilt or out of obligation. And I think a lot of times we do that, and we find ourselves in places and in things and feeling things that if we only had said no or answered differently. Which brings me to the whole idea of boundaries. Yes, a lot of times we know things and we don't actively, you know, like you said, we don't actively implement it. And so for me lately, I've been, you know, implementing and reinforcing my boundaries a whole lot more, to basically be able to carve out more time for myself and the things that matters to me. How has setting boundaries allowed you to create a life you are passionate about?
I mean, it's just that it's realizing that you can't do everything. People might always want to, like, you might be the person that somebody comes to for a particular thing, right? And sometimes you don't personally have the time to deal with it, so to speak, right? And I think boundaries comes in when you have to just really, truly zone in to what is serving you. You can't always be the person putting, like, I guess, pouring into others' cup while yours is running empty.
Right.
So boundaries are very important, and especially in time management, it's paramount, because without that, then you're really not going to have any time for yourself.
Right. And you said something about leaning in and support. I remember A.R. Bernard always used to say, you don't grow in isolation, you grow in community. And I know, of course, as a business owner, as a mom, as a woman, community has been big for me. When you're getting a business off the ground, you know, a lot of times we quickly become overwhelmed, and you already, as a physician, you're a mom, you got all these other stuff happening, and you're still trying to carve out time for yourself. And then here it is, you're starting something new, which requires, time, you're overwhelmed with all the different things to do and all the different moving parts. How essential is, and how powerful, how should I say, how essential is the powerful support system to success?
Oh my gosh, super, super important. I don't know how far I would have gotten without such a support system. And I was blessed to have that. Remember when I mentioned about residency versus mom life? Like, so who's watching my son, my newborn, for the 12 hours, 5 days a week that I'm not there? And it really was a support system. My good
Right.
friend Aisha, I would drop him off like 5:30 in the morning to her. And then by like 7, somebody would pick Colin up from there to bring him to my mom's. It was like we had to sort of create this schedule where I have to trust everybody around me, my support system, to now care for him, transport him from place A to place B, watch him for the day.
Right.
Then I'm working 12 hours, so I have to leave 5:30. I don't get home till like 8:30, 9 o'clock. So people have jobs too. People have their lives and obligations too. So it was really like, without that support system, could not happen.
Right.
Now that he's older, and then with starting the business, support was still quite important. Setting everything up, finally getting a space, fixing the place, organizing. I leaned in on my boyfriend, my brother, my dad, my mom, even Colin. Like, I started delegating him to do certain
Right.
tasks. Like, and that all is support. Here I'm talking to you. This is not our first interview together. This is not our first talk together. I mean, just reading your book, betting on yourself. Like, we motivate each other, we support each other, and that goes across the board. I mean, we have our friends and our family around us. And when everyone's willing to help you through these processes, like, I
Right.
think you need it. No one can do this in isolation.
Right.
Or I should say, if you do, it's just going to take you a lot longer.
A lot longer, definitely. And with that said, the follow-up question is, now with all of that and experiencing all of that, how do you now view wealth versus being rich?
Ooh, that's a good question, because wealth doesn't, okay, you hear the word rich, both of them. You hear the word wealth and rich and you initially think money, right?
Right.
But now that you put the question like that, that's why I say it's a good question. Rich is monetary, I think, completely.
Right.
Wealth, though, is not just monetary.
Right.
You can have a wealth of knowledge, you can have a wealth of support around you, you can have an abundance. It could be funds, it could be money, it could include that too, but wealth is when you're truly fulfilled.
Right. Yep. Yes. Awesome.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, like, that's wealth.
Right, definitely. And that's the thing. And I asked you that question, of course, which basically ties into this whole idea of leaning into your passion, because a lot of times people, like you said, most people think of money, you say wealth and stuff, but wealth is, it's not just money. There's two sides to it. And that's, like you said, you describe that support system, that people leaning in, you being able to tap into that. And that in itself is wealth. I think I heard Tyler Perry talked about when he was first getting started, and he was like, he didn't have the money to get projects off the ground. And, someone said to him, but you have relationships, right? And he was like, yes. And he's like, so why you have a problem? You got relationships, then money will come. And so, I really wanted to pose that to you because, of course, watching you, and like I said, I've known you for about 20 years. So I've watched you grown, and, I'm very proud of what, the woman that you have grown into. I mean, I've been there, so I can say that. But I wanted to really pose that question because I'm thinking, looking at your life take shape and stuff, I felt like you're a definition of what wealth looks like at this point, even though most people would think, oh, I'm not wealthy, but we're wealthy in so many things. We just don't stop to embrace it and be grateful for it.
That is a tremendous compliment. But speaking about passion, I feel like people feel a lot of pressure when they're asked like this question about, like, what are you passionate about? Like, what if you don't have like a direct answer? It's kind of like, who are you? It's like, you're not defined by what you do. You're really defined by who you are, like your quality traits, things you enjoy, things like that.
Values.
I think passion is just one of those things where, you just put your full force of your attention and energy to whatever it is that you enjoy. That is your passion,
Right.
right? We don't have to go on this search for what is my passion. It's
Right.
really, what is it that you enjoy? That is your passion.
What
What's
brings
in
you
front of
complete
you?
fulfillment and lights you up. Yep.
And then with that being said, it's you can even put that in an analogy with love. You can't find the one, right? There's no the one. You just have to be yourself, and the energy you put out is the energy that you attract.
Right.
So I think, in all aspects of my life, when it comes to passion, that's how I'm able to cultivate these relationships, cultivate this business, cultivate my emotional health state and well-being, cultivate my body, my lifestyle, my everything, right? So all of that is passion.
Right.
And that's a tremendous compliment. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you right now to share one of the most defining moments in your journey.
Hmm. So I had the honor of taking part in New York Fashion Week, February of this year, so earlier this year. It wasn't that I was a part of Fashion Week that I guess defined this big moment, but it was when my son came up to me after the show and hugged me and said, "Mommy, I'm so proud of you. Like, that was amazing." And then he started asking me, like, questions that I think are obvious to children. And to me, I'm just like, relax. But he's like, "So does this mean that your business is gonna blow up so much more now?" Like, and I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I mean, you're doing really, really, really good, but does that mean now, like, you're gonna be on TV and stuff?" And I said, "Well, what does that mean to you?" And he's like, "Well, my mom is super successful, and I feel like, every time she does something new in her business, it only gets better." And just
Right.
having this conversation with him made me really realize, because I thought he didn't care much, but it made me realize that he's watching.
Right.
And although I think he's not getting it, he's getting it. He's
Oh
getting
yeah.
it. And I think one of the most defining moments is realizing that, not just that moment per se, but that's when I
Yeah.
realized it. And I
And
was just like, wow.
and I can understand that because I remember one of my moments like that when, because you think they don't pay attention, and this is why, being careful and understanding that they may not always say it in the moment, and you may think they're not watching, but they pay attention and they soak it up and they take it in. And I've had those moments with my older one and the younger one, and this is why I tell people I'm very mindful of what I do, and I make sure that at this point in time I live my brand and everything, my values and stuff, because at the end of the day, I got two kids. I want to make sure that I leave the world better for them, and the example that I set is the example that they, is the story that they also tell themselves. So I completely understand that as a mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to business, did you ever wish that you had taken the leap sooner, whether it be business or, any of your other passions or stuff? Looking back, do you wish you had taken the leap sooner?
Yeah. Like, what was I afraid of? Why couldn't I have done this before? But that's a thought, but I wouldn't say it's a regret, because I personally feel like things happen when they're supposed to.
Mhm.
I've always thought that I'd have a business in medicine.
Mhm.
I thought maybe I would have my own practice. I used to say that all the time, like, I can't wait till I could open my own practice, but I didn't know what that looked like. And I didn't work toward that. It was just something that, it was a fleeting thought.
Right.
So in retrospect, yeah, I might have, even in fashion, I might have said, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, what was I afraid of? But at the end of the day, it was supposed to happen when it did.
Okay. And can you share one piece of advice that you received throughout the process that was necessary and priceless for you?
And this is recent, but that advice is, as you said before, or alluded to before, is relationships, right? So make relationships along the way. I have a large network. I wouldn't say a large network, but, a good network of
Right.
friends. And, you meet people along the way. Some relationships, are different. All of them are different,
Right.
but, just making those connections and then realizing how to, I guess, nurture them and let them grow, and also realize how one can help the other.
Right.
That I think is something that I'm still working on and still cultivating. But remember, as I said, most of my life, although it was the earlier years that I was into fashion and modeling, I'm still nurturing those connections, right? And that's important, I think, in business, because as we said before, yes, you can have your support system,
Right.
but in order for growth and advancement, finding new people,
Right.
learning about what they do, even if it's not to help you, it's still a connection that they might know somebody else, and so on and so on. So just
Right.
being valuable to others and making great connections, I think, is one of the most valuable things that I've learned.
Okay, cool. And I think we can both speak to, being at a point where we feel, and I'm sure sometimes it still happens, where we feel unclear, overwhelmed, navigating this thing called life, of course. We've been there where we have lived out of alignment with who we are, probably accept terms beneath our worth. And we have all failed miserably and repeatedly. And I know for me, my health, I've paid the price when it comes to that. For anyone listening who is questioning their life right now, tired of feeling unsure about who they are and about their values, what personal strategies do you have that you can share to help empower them to bet on themselves?
Yeah, I think journaling is important. Even if you don't keep up with it all the time, because I'm guilty, but just writing things down. What did you like about your day today? What made you happy? What made you upset? I think if you're questioning your life and questioning where you stand, I think just writing that down helps you to realize your place in the world, right? And by that, I mean, you realize the things you like, the things you don't like. So today, I got up and I went to the gym and I felt really good afterward. Like, writing that down is important. Or, I don't know, I took the bus to so-and-so and this person was, making noise on the bus and it really made me upset and annoyed and whatever. So then you realize you just don't want to be on public transportation. Like, so like, just, I think reflection is important. And one way to do that would be through journaling. So I think that would be one good way to do that. Another good way would be through reading. Reading is important. I mean, I'm not saying you have to pick up all the motivational and self-help books,
Right.
but when you read and then do something with what you've read, you can definitely see growth with that. My most recent book that I read was The Mountain Is You,
Right.
by Brianna Wiest. And it was based, and I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, but the basic idea of the book is how not to self-sabotage, right? Because we have this notion to always, or this tendency to always think about where we're doing things wrong,
Right.
as opposed to where we're doing things right. And I think it's a great book. I would recommend it. But what I'm saying is, from that, now I could reflect and journal on that and say, okay, what are some ways that I might have been self-sabotaging, and how can I change my mindset into a growth mindset to realize, okay, this is what I'm doing where I can do better, as
Right.
opposed to saying, what's wrong with me? I can never get this right. Like, you don't want to
Right.
do that.
And that self-talk matters a lot. That story we tell ourselves, the things we say to ourselves these days, we don't realize that it becomes or affirmation. We're just, it just becomes negative affirmation when we tell ourselves all these negative things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And what would you call, or what theme, if your life today was a movie, what would you theme it, or what would you title it? What phase are you in this part of your life?
What phase? I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like, and my favorite quote by Mahatma Gandhi is, "My life is my message."
Mhm.
But I feel like I'm not done yet.
Okay.
But I've done a lot over the years, and it truly is my message. So at the end of the day, when it comes to my interest in fitness, my life as a mom, my life as a boutique owner and self-made fashion designer, the bottom line is always to inspire others, right? So within fashion, for example, my goal is to be able to, I guess, be the supplier of clothing to women that make them feel confident, right? And to uplift them. And now men, because I have some menswear. But the idea is to inspire others, but I want to do that by example.
Right.
I hope that makes sense. So this quote, "My life is my message," is like the mantra. So yeah, let's call the movie that.
Okay. And how can people connect with you?
Oh, everywhere. So my personal platform is NY Curly Doc. I am on Facebook, Instagram. I even have a website. You can find me there, nycurlydoc.com. I haven't updated it recently, forgive me, but my business is Statement Piece New York. And that's common spelling, Statement Piece, Piece, And again, all platforms, you can Google me. We have a space in Brooklyn that you can Google. We have a website, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Yelp. You can find me there too. And yeah, I'm always open. Like people always message me, even my own close friends, questions, words of advice. I'm always trying to just inspire and help others. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Okay, awesome, Shari. Thank you for pulling up a seat and sharing tips on work, business, life, as to basically help others to, be able to do the same thing that you're doing, stepping outside of the mold and taking, a chance on your passion so that you can live life on your own terms. Again, this episode was brought to you by the book Bet on Yourself, Life Lessons to Cultivate and Create Your Own Success. The link will be in the description box. You can grab it on Amazon, barnesandnobles.com. And I hope this episode added value to your life. Listen for the next episode.